Hello and welcome back to Fort Wayne on the Move with me, Councilwoman Michelle Chambers. I am super excited this month to have our special guest. Some of you may know or may not know, guess what? I'm a foodie. And today I have Mr. Johnny Perez here with me, and I'm super excited for you all to learn all about his business. Welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here today. I will start off by saying that I've had the absolute pleasure of eating at a few of your restaurants, and it has just been a complete joy. So before I start talking about all my favorites on your menus, can you just please share with our viewing audience who you are, what restaurants you currently own here in Fort Wayne on the Landing, right?
Yep.
Are they all on the Landing?
So far, yeah.
So far, okay, go for it.
So my name's Johnny. Was born on the West Coast, but raised in Fort Wayne.
We're at the West Coast.
West Coast, Los Angeles. So I have a lot of family throughout the West Coast right now, but we came over here at a young age, so Fort Wayne's where we call home.
Okay.
Went to Harrison Hill Elementary School, went to Geyer Middle School, Miami, and then graduated from Southside High School. So definitely, homegrown down here. So we have 2 kids. I have my wife, and right now we're at a big growth spurt in our, restaurant group. So we started as a food truck back in 2019.
A food truck.
Yeah, so Mercadito food truck, got to start there. We opened Mercado on the Landing, and not too long after that, we ended up opening Papi's Pizza right next door. And we have a couple other concepts on the back burner right now. We have a Spoke and Ivy on Main Street by Redwood Inn. That'll be opening hopefully next month.
Really?
And then the one in March, most likely, is called Duckies. And Duckies would be more of like a duck pin bowling, sort of sports bar-y, family-friendly environment. And that's located at the Pearl.
Oh, at the Pearl. Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Now, you said restaurant group. What is the name of your restaurant group?
Yeah, so we like to call ourselves De Gusto Hospitality.
De Gusto?
De Gusto. So it's the past tense of like you liked it. So that's where the name comes from. So like a kind of a running joke with my uncle and my dad. Like they see you eating something they made, and they just like, oh, Te Gusto. So that's where it comes from.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a restaurant group. So like for our viewing audience, we know about franchises like the McDonald's and the Burger Kings and things of that nature. Give us a little background on what is a group, a restaurant group. What does that mean?
For sure. So I guess our overall goal is to be sort of like multi-entities, right? But we don't necessarily want to copy and paste the same concept. So as a hospitality group, it's kind of the way to kind of group our portfolio, if you will. So right now, we have Cali Mex, we have pizza, we'll have, I guess American, New American. So it's a way to kind of let people know that we come from the same, I'd say, founding philosophies as well.
Yes.
So by showing like our belief system and people that, are attracted to certain brands, hopefully they realize like, oh, that's why I like it. It's one of their restaurants, you know what I mean? And we hope that people can actually like feel a certain way when they come to the restaurants and not just what tastes good and looks good.
Yeah.
But that's the reason behind the hospitality group.
So we have some things in common. I am a native of Fort Wayne, absolutely. I moved back home 14 years ago from the West Coast. I grew up basically in Inglewood. I left, we as a family left Fort Wayne in 1976 when I was in 3rd grade.
Okay.
So when I came into Mercado, I don't know if this was intentional, I was like, this feels very LA. It had like a really LA vibe. And then the uniqueness of the menu. I mean, it definitely has the a Mexican menu, but it has some added little sweet touches. Like I will say, it was my first time going to a restaurant, and I was able to get lamb chops.
Yeah.
And those lamb chops, I don't know what you guys are doing in the kitchen. They are fire. So tell me how you intertwine American, Mexican, it's like you got this sweet harmony going.
Yeah, so being Mexican American, so I'm first generation, so there's a word called Chicano. So Chicano is kind of like the word given to someone that comes from Mexican descent, but from the United States. So I think that is a different seasoning, is different flair when it comes from that, because I think for Mercado, our goal was to have the traditional ingredients, but formatted in a way that's a little bit more personality. I have formal restaurant kitchen training, went to culinary school.
Oh, where did you go?
So I went to Johnson & Wales in Rhode Island. So I was in Providence for a little bit on the East Coast, and that kind of formal cooking was fun. But then I realized, you know what, I want to get back to my roots. And Mercado was kind of like, hey, I want some things that are familiar. I don't want to over-engineer the menu either, but hey, you'll find some familiar items, like you said. You got rice, beans.
Oh, yeah.
But there's there's dumplings. We just actually took the lamb chops off the menu, but we added a pork chop though instead. But we kind of keep things fresh. We do at least 2 menu changes a year.
Right.
But that's the intent behind Mercado. We want it to be fun. We want it to be familiar, but not to be like everything else.
Yeah, and I love the patio area of Mercado. We'll go down and sit down, and honestly, just to have some cocktails
Oh, yeah.
and your salsa. I mean, the chips and dips are amazing. The guacamole is
Oh,
so
yeah.
good. So tell us about your other establishments. What is the theme, the restaurant, the
Yeah.
theme? I will say, my great nephew loves the pizza.
Okay, awesome.
We were down on the landing for, you know, they have the DJs there
Oh, yeah.
in the summertime, and he said, I want to go get some pizza. So I just sat there and let him do the big boy thing, but it was a line. It literally was a line out the door this
Yeah,
summer.
sometimes there's, depending on what's going on downtown, there's always an activity. But so Poppy's Pizza next door, we had the opportunity to take on that space. And we've been needing a little bit more space on the Mercado prep room. So the prep rooms at both places are connected now. So it gave us some more room. But I've always liked the idea of pizza, and like I like a new challenge. So we formulated some recipes, and we have basically I would call it American style pizza, but we also have some more artisanal style, like almost Italian Neapolitan style too.
Really?
So there's some range there. We have big 20-inch XL pizzas, or you can get 12-inch. But the feeling in there is very nostalgic to the 90s theme. We got skateboards hanging up, so we wanted to go for more of a hip, fun, like again, something that takes you back a little bit. But we're really serious about the pizza. So like if you get the pizza, you definitely can tell we put a lot of care into it. We have a fermentation schedule on the dough, so it's like calculated to that degree.
Really?
Yeah, so we put every layer in the pizza, again, casual item, but put a lot of thought into it.
Is that where your formal training comes into play? Because these are very different. I mean, you have pizza, and then you have a full dinner menu. So is that where your culinary experience, you've been able to merge and marry and have such success in these restaurants thus far because of your formal training background?
I think the formal training, but we do a lot of research and development. We go out to eat, I think, as my hobby, to learn about what other markets are doing. I think Fort Wayne's really right for people. I mean, people in Fort Wayne haven't only lived in Fort Wayne, they go to other places, right? So how do we make something that's for Fort Wayne with you feel like maybe you're challenging your palate a little bit? Because if it's always the same template every time, it just feels like, more of utility, not really anything that's going to excite you. So that's, I think, how we've been able to grow the menus and the brand is by doing things that we think people in Fort Wayne want, but doing it with, again, stuff that we like to eat as well.
Yeah, and you take a lot of pride in your customer service. Your staff that I've had the opportunity to interact with, always very kind and pleasant and very accommodating. So that's 2 out of 4. What's the third one that's getting the doors that are getting ready to open?
Yeah, so Spoken Ivy was now.
Spoken Ivy.
Yep. So
What's
it's like
the origin of that name?
So the idea was we were thinking about oak and ivy and another combination of that. 'Cause I would say those sounds, but we landed on spoke, like a bike spoke and ivy. So
okay.
the logo is like a little old, school bike with some ivy growing on it. And we're in the Nebraska neighborhood, so we wanted something that was kind of reminiscent of like how people can get to the restaurant is, come on a bike if you'd like to. We're on Main Street, but the idea, my daughter's name is also Ivy, so it was another way to kind of introduce that into it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's going to be a new American restaurant for lunch. We're going to do like soup, salad, sandwich combos, things that are, I think downtown needs. And then be in the neighborhood. We'll have a coffee as well. We have like espresso machine to do lattes and things like that. At dinner, we'll definitely have some more, I'd say, chef-driven entrees. We'll have, anywhere from fresh-made pasta to a bone-in ribeye. So we have a good range there. I think it's going to be a place that you feel like you can dress up, but if you want to, have a casual appetizer there too. In the basement, actually, we have another concept called Black Rabbit. So we had the opportunity to do like a small, very almost like speakeasy-like basement bar down there.
Is that in the basement, like?
Yep. So in the basement of that building. So that building's 120 years old.
I'm trying to visualize.
So the entrance is like, so if you're looking at Spoken Ivy in the front, there is like a door to the side that you can go down into the basement.
That used to be, what did that used to be?
For that building, so old, it hasn't been anything in a long time.
Oh, okay. I probably.
It might be somewhere else, but there is another, there's another concept like that. But yeah, we'll have.
Okay.
Yep. So that's where Black Rabbit will be.
So we're gonna have like a speakeasy. But what's your blueprint? How many can sit down there?
That one, I would say you could probably have like 30 to 40 potentially, depending on like where we end up laying out these chairs. But it would be very, very moody, very intimate.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a good contrast to the upstairs as well, but also complement itself.
Very intimate and very nice for intimate parties and things of that nature.
We hope to have like maybe like a solo like jazz singer in there, just playing like kind of swingy music.
Okay.
But something that's again that I haven't had in a long time since COVID, I think. And I think kind of really not being afraid to challenge things and making people be closer in a sense. So that's the goal for Spoken Ivy and Black Rabbit. That will be open as an entire unit.
And what are the opening dates for those?
I'm hoping the next month we're open. We're at the tail end of construction now. We're going painting this week. kitchen equipment next week, so we're close. This is right now where like it took this long, but then in the next couple of weeks it turned into a restaurant.
It's getting ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
When you said spoken ivy and you explained the concept to me, I began to think about the ivy in California. I don't know if you remember that one. I think they were on Melrose, not Melrose. I can see it in my head. It was a very intimate, had a lot of ivy out there, but very popular restaurant.
Okay.
So is that all four?
So that's spoken ivy, and then the other restaurant we'll have is Ducky's.
Ducky's. Oh.
So that will be at the Pearl, and that's a 8,000 square foot facility.
8,000. Oh,
it's
my
big.
God! How many? Ooh.
So that one we have a good amount of space dedicated to the duck pin bowling lanes. So we got 8 lanes in there. I'm assuming we'll end up being around 130 or so people can sit down. But it's going to be, so our goal with that is that we want some kind of like year-round activity in Fort Wayne, right? Especially downtown.
Yes.
And duck pin bowling, I think it's something that doesn't go out of style at all, but it's definitely a fun activity for all ages.
Family-oriented, young people, all people.
And the duck pin bowling, some people aren't familiar with it. It is like a smaller ball. It's shorter lanes, so you can be super competitive or you can just be casual with it. But for lunch, we want to keep it. My favorite burger is West Coast In-N-Out smash burger is my favorite burger, right? So we're gonna do that kind of style menu for lunch with like chicken strips and stuff like that, more like Dave's Hot Chicken style. So a lot of big bold flavors. Keep that at dinner, but do a lot of different, I think, more elevated bar food that people might think of.
Yeah.
Maybe like duck carnita nachos. Maybe do a seared off tuna sashimi. We want to do like chicken curry skewers. So stuff that, again, that's unexpected, but again, familiar in some way that you don't feel like you have to think too much when you're eating.
So will it have a sports bar feel too? We have the big TVs.
We're gonna have, this is the first restaurant that we'll have TVs in, and we're going for like, I don't know, it's so hard to be not too tacky, but not too informal, but we're trying to hit like this, almost like this refined, sports bar is kind of hard to throw like what people imagine, right? But I would say like a refined, like family-friendly sports bar environment.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal.
I think that's a great goal, the integrating of the family piece as well. As well as now we have so many apartments coming downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And folks to be able to walk and have entertainment. I love walkable, livable communities and the fact that you're contributing to that. That is awesome. So here's a tough but not so tough question. The reality of it is, just recently, 2 restaurants closed downtown. Tell me what's your formula? How have you, I'm not asking you to diagnose why they closed, but why do you think you've been able to have this great success and still being able to expand your blueprint? That's very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I ask myself the same question. I think starting from the food truck showed us how being small can be strong, right? And I think learning the physical limitations of working in a food truck, how to staff properly for how to maximize your footprint, right? So when we went to Mercado, we were used to working on a food truck. So for us, that was like ×5 the space, right? So understanding the metrics of the business and how to formulate that, I think is one big area, but that comes from managing restaurants. But the other element as far as sustaining and getting other people interested in what we're doing is the people factor. So we focus a lot on intimate conversations with our staff. You know, like our business model plan is high truth, high grace. And
high truth, high grace.
And we have tough conversations faster than they need to happen, that we don't wait for it to get bad. And we expect the staff to same challenge us. Like, hey, Johnny, you told me I was going to be due for a raise soon. Where is it? Like, you know what? You're right. I haven't focused on that. And I think accountability is like even playing ground. There's no hierarchy to that. And I think that's been a big component between our management team and I would say our hourly staff, right, is that even though you're a part-time employee, your part-time involvement on that shift is 100%. And how do we make sure that we're nurturing each other? We talk about emotional awareness and, again, alignment. Like, hey, don't hate me as your employer because this is causing your life to be in shambles, or like how your schedule's working out. We agreed to something. Let's figure it out together. If this is not working again, or hey, this season of your life is bad, let's figure it out. I think that's a secret thing where it's not a business tactic, or it's not a secret, but I think people haven't been doing that enough. And I think that nurturement is one area that can go both ways, right? I want my managers to be treated with respect from their hourly staff, but me as the owner, I'm responsible for both sides of the, I would say, the dynamic. So I would say that's kind of where we've been able to create this growth spurt we're going through right now.
I'm so happy that you're having this growth spurt. I'm just my mind is ticking like, oh, I can do this with my great niece and nephew. I can go here with my girlfriend. So thank you for that. So do you come from a family of men who cook, or is it your mom?
Yeah, my dad, he's definitely a great cook. My mom cooked a lot as well. And a lot of the foods that we have at Mercado are reminiscent of their style. because they're both from Jalisco, Guadalajara. So like it's a specific style. Like the birria, if you remember those crispy, cheesy, dippy tacos that you see all over online. We did that in the food truck 2019, and it was just getting to the Midwest. So a lot of our inspiration comes from family members as well.
Do you still have the food truck?
Yeah, so with the food truck, it's kind of shifted what we do with it now. We do a lot of catering, weddings, private stuff. But when we first started, like we would park anywhere we could and kind of built the business that way. But now that we have like our home base and year-round availability, with the food truck's only 6 months out the year, we've been able to take out the truck only when we have a specific event. Sometimes we'd go out and let's see what happens. And at this point in time, we have to make sure that our time's valuable. You know what I mean? We can't have someone waiting around for something to maybe happen.
Yeah.
So we're not out as much, I would say, casually, but we go out to different companies in town, and then definitely weddings for sure.
This is what I love about your business blueprint. I'm a business teacher at AmpLab for Fort Wayne Community Schools, and we teach entrepreneurship to our juniors and seniors. And we always talk about scaling and diversifying your revenue stream. And this is a great restaurant model that you've done thus far. Share with me the day that you said, you know what, wife, family, we're about to get out of this truck and open a restaurant. Tell me what that process was like for you because that's a big step. That is to go from in the truck to brick and mortar. And we know what comes along with that big decision. Tell me your process when you said it's time.
Yeah, I think I felt like the bigger risk was going to the food truck. I was leaving a comfortable salary job.
Well, tell me, what was your background prior to?
So I was working a few restaurants here in town. I helped open a couple restaurants with James Caan, actually.
Okay.
So
great mentor.
Oh yeah. So it had been great, and it got to a point where I kept having this itch to do something, and I wasn't a big risk taker, honestly. Like,
really?
I was very calculated. Like, hey, let's not do that. And I just got to a point where, like, hey, I think if I really want to do something, we have to just go out and just risk it, right? So I think that betting on yourself sort of mentality is that if you don't do it, no one's going to do it for you. And I think with my wife's support, she's more of a risk taker and said, hey, let's do it. And you need people on your team that are supporting that. Some family member, hey, just stay safe, you're doing well. And some are going to tell you, know what, just go do it, figure it out. So I think I needed that from my wife to just say, go do it. Because she said, if anything happens, I can go work part-time somewhere, do what I got to do. And that honestly shifted my mindset of what's possible. So jumping into Mercado after we had the food truck seemed a little bit more natural to me. Like I always had in our plan to do that. We just didn't know it would be a restaurant on the landing, right? We just thought it was
timing is everything.
Yeah, we thought we were gonna just open maybe hole in the wall place, kind of patch it up over time. But for it to be the landing at the time, during COVID and everything like that, it's crazy when I really think about what we pulled off with that store. So now I just have this idea, like I've got rid of the limits in my mind. And if we hear something, we just go for it.
I love that. We always talk about the entrepreneur spirit. It's more than the concept of just being an entrepreneur. It really is a spirit, because an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to take risks. You have to be willing to think outside the box and not be, you can be cautious, but you can't let that fear grip you, So that's just very impressive. Did you know, like when you were at Southside getting ready to graduate from high school, was this a vision that you've seen? Or
My wife knows specifically, so we met in high school, and I told her, like, hey, just so you know, this is a life I'm signing up for. You might not see me that much if we were to get married. So I had been saying it, since high school, yeah. I mean, since middle school, I would always do drafting logos, different things like that. So it's one thing to be like, how did you know what you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. It just always seemed like I needed to do it, and there was no question about it.
I love it. What was your experience like going to school on the East Coast?
It was different. So the day after I graduated from Southside, I was on a plane the next day to the East Coast. So it was, very different environment, way different cultures, different hospitality, right? I always make a joke, like people walk really fast over there and talk really fast over there. But I got to learn a lot about myself too, because I was alone, zero family around, right? So I think that was a fun experience, and to be able to cook in it was a brand new facility at the time. I felt like, hey, this is what it's supposed to feel like. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm in the big leagues now. So I ended up leaving there after I got my associate's degree to IPFW, and I did my bachelor's in hospitality management there.
Nice. So just home-fed, homegrown all the way. Do you have the opportunity to cook anymore? Are you part of the day-to-day operational side, or are you in the kitchen with your chefs anymore? Are you still
Yeah, we do basically collaborative menus. I do find more fulfillment in having the other chefs kind of create things and I can tweak with them. I do feel like more in like the mentorship side is where I need to be. And I do need to be working again on the business, not in the business per se. I do miss those elements of the founding stages where like my wife is working the front desk, I'm on the kitchen line. It's just this growth spurt happens so fast that like for it to be sustainable, I have to put other aces in these places to make sure that it doesn't just function off me, because then that doesn't mean it's a good business model, right?
Right.
And I made sure to make that my priority, get a different general manager and hire and train to replace myself. And that showed me that I can train. And you know what I mean? And I think that's where like, okay, this model can work. So now we have all our general managers slated for these next stores already.
Really?
And people that have been with us for at least 4 years since we've opened Mercado. And it's been good to kind of see them blossom into these opportunities, because if there's only just Mercado, it's just enough for me, right? Like, how can I make the opportunity scale for other people? And that's kind of what's led to the growth, honestly, is like, hey, we have these good people. This seems a lot more possible with this person.
Yeah.
And that's what it's kind of felt like right now, just kind of growing with people.
I watch, I believe it's called The Bear.
Oh, yeah.
Are kitchens really like, I mean, do you have to be synchronized like that and in harmony like that? Because when I watch, it's like, yes, chef, no chef. And they're like moving, it's like a sympathy. It's sympathy.
Oh, yeah.
Sympathy, yeah.
Yeah, there's elements of that that's still around, and some of it is more like the old school romantic kind of Gordon Ramsay side.
Oh, really?
There's some of it cinematic for sure, but I always thought I was going to work in a kitchen like that where they throw a pan at you or whatever. But luckily, things have shifted better for people wanting to work in the restaurant business. But I got my own PTSD on the episode where he was getting all those online orders. Like,
yes.
That for me.
Did you experience that before?
Oh my goodness, yes. We've had events where we used to do those birria taco days. So
yes.
like we would have 7 people working on the truck, and you know we would get sometimes one person in line would order 40 tacos because they were ordering for them and their friends, and there was still a line of 40 people. So we would have waits of like 2 hours sometimes during those events at that time.
Wow.
Again, through COVID, there was nothing else to do. People wanted to get outside. The food truck was the best thing we could have done at that moment because it was an outdoor service, right? So, but anyways, that anxiety I got from like hearing the ticket print or like the orders banging in the computer screen is very real.
I love that, sir. And it was, again, I think it's a good example how he had to diversify. He has a very high end, but he went back to what works.
Oh, yeah.
The sandwiches.
Yep.
You know, and when they got back to that, I was like, that's great. That's a great example that you can have the best of both worlds. You can have this very high-end restaurant. It's a small, intimate. I had a friend that was in the restaurant business, and this thing was he liked more smaller restaurant settings where you could, you know, turn the tables more. But he was just like, it worked better for him. That's when you said 8,000 square feet. I was like, whoa. I said, oh, but he's got the pins and things, because that's a big.
It's big, yeah.
That's a big blueprint of 8,000 square feet. But back to that model in the Bear is very like you can still service your traditional. You could still have the walk-up window, but you have this fine dining in this small, intimate, you know, dining room. Food is so anchoring. You know, it's always gather. It's a place to gather and enjoy good flavors, good taste, good conversation. So it's so impressive that you have the opportunity just to bring people together in joyful settings with good food. So if I'm a young person and I'm watching you today, you know, what encouraging words or advice would you give a young person who's like toying with the ideal and going into culinary, going to the hospitality field?
Yep, it's kind of two things, I guess. One thing is that we always say at the restaurants, like, don't be cute, execute. A lot of people just want
don't be cute,
execute. Yeah,
I'm going to be stealing.
Yeah, people get kind of showy. Feel like they're maybe not. Don't have any true founding like pillars of like true discipline and true training, right? They're dabbling. They feel like, oh, it's going to happen at some point, but no, like, don't be cute, execute what you're trying to say, right? And one random quote I came across years ago is like, there's someone with a lot more average abilities that's doing what you want to do already, and you're waiting, and they're doing it, and you're not doing it, right? And it's like, if you know you can execute that product or that service at that level or better, what's keeping you from you doing it if this average person is doing it already, right? And I think people usually don't want to give advice to compare yourself or where someone's at in life, but you know, if you don't have that motivator within yourself or next to you, you know, where else do you find that push, right? You gotta, you know, quit feeling bad for yourself and quit waiting for someone else to do it for you, right? Because again, someone else can do it before you do, and I think that's one thing in my head. I'm like, I know Fort Wayne could use this. I know Fort Wayne would like this. So all of our restaurant brands at this point in time are places that we want to go out to eat to, right?
Right. Share with me how many people you employ in your 4 establishments.
So between like part-time, full-time, I think we usually float around 40 people at Mercado alone. And that store is small, just when the patio gets bigger, like in the summer. So Poppy's a smaller team. We have like 6 to 8 there. With the next 2 stores, we'll have at least anywhere from 30 to 40 people per store.
Look at you.
So
That's all local. I love that. Now, I can't let our conversation end. Another reason why I wanted you to come is to share. You've had a public-private partnership basically with the city. They had the opportunity to create this way to bring businesses, restaurants specifically downtown. Let's talk about your riverfront liquor license, what that has really, how helpful that has been, having that economic development tool available to you for that use.
Yeah, and in the restaurant business, right, you have food and food gets, again, more expensive every year, right?
It's 15 to 20% up since COVID.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a lot. You process a lot more labor behind it, right? But when you have spirits, beer involved, is that those things don't spike up too much, and there's a lot more margin in that. So the inefficiencies of the food pricing versus the alcohol pricing helps become, again, a little bit easier to do business, right? So with the riverfront liquor license, by having that and not having to purchase it for the full market value, really makes it a lot better to be able to do business efficiently, and then create a more full dining experience where you can have a glass of wine or a margarita. Because without that, I don't think we would have had this revenue to sustain the needs of the rent downtown and everything like that. I think it helps complement the
because a riverfront license is different than a traditional license. But a traditional liquor license can be very expensive.
Yep, very.
Very, very expensive. So if you're in this certain demographic area within downtown, that's a license specifically to have spirits, a full, not just beer and wine, but a full menu of spirits, essentially. Because you're located in this riverfront demographic area. So all of your restaurants, do they all have a riverfront liquor license?
3 of them will. We were able to purchase one for Spoke and Ivy because that was right outside of the district at that time.
Okay.
But yeah, that's been something that's allowed us to create fuller experience for people that dine in.
Yeah, and I really pride ourselves as a city that we came up with that concept because it's a beautiful thing. Like you said, diversification in the hospitality is greatly needed. You want to have multiple revenue streams. And the fact that someone, I forget which person came up with this concept, but every time someone comes to the city council to get approved, I'm like, more people are being employed. We have another opportunity for people to come and to gather and to be together and have a full experience. Their palate can be met in all kinds of ways. So I think that's really, really good. So do you think you will ever branch out into any other area under your hospitality umbrella? Will it always be more food driven?
It's definitely what we're good at. I mean, I'd like to get into maybe more consulting, but still restaurant type work. But I think that I'd love to partner with other entities that need maybe a hospitality focused intense, right? Like maybe our management training will work in a different type of business, not just restaurant business. Because the restaurant business, I have people from every background, right? You know what I mean? Like kids, younger people that are going to school, or maybe that people that went to school and didn't work out.
Right.
You know what I mean? And or someone that's just kind of restarting life for a moment. And that's where the restaurant business is giving me so much agility, I think, in that social space, that I think I could probably eventually, hopefully, apply that to other areas of life.
Okay. So throughout this conversation, you've said some key things that I'm happy about your model. Management training, your training within. You talk about the emotional being of your staff. The fact that you're very intentional in being a part of the process of developing the menus. I mean, like you said, you got it early on that as an entrepreneur, you can't do everything. So you're as strong as your team. And it seems to be a family affair with your family, with you and your wife and the children and your parents who cook as well. So I just want to say thank you. I'm so happy that you chose to stay in Fort Wayne and bring us all of your talents here in Fort Wayne. And I'm very appreciative of the blueprint that you set up on the landing, and now you're branching out a little further out. So I say thank you for that, for being intentional with your growth. So what I would like for you to do is to look in that camera over there, share like your hours of operation. If people can go to one place to learn about all the restaurants, that'd be good. But I want our viewing audience to take advantage of and come down and visit some of your spots. So you can look over there and share that information.
So come and see us on the landing. We have Mercado and Poppy's Pizza Monday through Saturday. Mercado 11 to 10 Monday to Thursday. We do have brunch on Saturdays at Mercado. Poppy's Pizza kind of mimics the same hours, 11 to 9 during the week, 10 on the weekends. We do have DoorDash at Poppy's Pizza. That was one of our newer brands, but I guarantee you'll find something that you like. will cater from Mercado or Papi's Pizza. Look out for Spoken Ivy. We'll be located. Join us at Spoken Ivy hopefully next month at 1402 West Main Street. We'll be close to the. We're at 1402 West Main Street, next to Redwood Inn, and Ducky's hopefully next year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for
Thank
sure.
you. I'm so excited that you joined us. So tune in. This will be live in the next 24 to 48 hours. So as usual, thank you for tuning in with me, Councilwoman, for Fort Wayne on the Move with Councilwoman Michelle Chambers. Go and experience all of the establishments because I can tell you personally that the food is excellent. So we'll see you next month, and thank you. Thank you. Great job.